Junie B. Jones, Turkeys We Have Loved and Eaten, and Other Thankful Stuff, by Barbara Park. 1. The Contest. Monday, Dear First Grade Journal, today is the month of Thanksgiving. At Thanksgiving we draw a lot of turkeys. Also, we draw pilgrims and Native Americans. They are eating at a table usually. Both of them seem to enjoy squash. I do not actually understand pilgrims. Their costumes look hottish and sweatish. This week Room 1 is making a list of the stuff we are thankful for. After we get done, we will put our list in a school contest. And the room with the bestest thankful list will win. Also, we are having a Thanksgiving feast on Wednesday. Our families get to come to school. Thanksgiving is a lot of work. Your friend, Junie B., first grader. I closed my journal and thought about squash. Emma's IMA 12 Bluck, I said out loud. I hate squash. May did a frown. Shush, Junie Jones. Can't you see that I am still writing? She said. May is the girl who sits next to me. I am not thankful for her. 9:36 Just then, my teacher Mr. Scary stood up at his desk. Boys and girls, it's time to get started on our thankful list for the school contest. He said. Can everyone please put your journals away? Yes, we shouted back. Yes. 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 Then all the children slammed our journals shut very happy. Slam. Slam. Bam. Slam. Bam. Slam. Slam. Bam. Mr. Scary sucked in his cheeks at us. He made us open our journals again. And we had to shut them quietly. It was some sort of slamming lesson, I believe. Eelbombs finally, he moved on. Okay. Last night's homework was to write down some of the things that you are thankful for, he said. Slob ate. He picked up a piece of chalk. Today I will start printing our thankful list on the board, he said. We will work on the list today and tomorrow. And then we will enter it in the school thankful contest. A boy named Roger raised his hand. Do we get a prize if we win? He asked. I always try harder if there's a prize involved. Mr. Scary did a frown at him. Yes, we're not doing this for a prize, Roger, he said. We're doing this to celebrate the things we are thankful for. Roger tapped his fingers on his desk. So is that a yes or a no on the prize? He asked. Mr. Scary stood there a minute. Then, all of a sudden, a smile came on his face. We did not expect that. Okay. Fine, Roger, he said. I was going to let this be a surprise if we won. But yes. There is a prize for winning the contest. All of Room 1 perked up our ears. You are a cause who doesn't love prizes, of course. What is it? What is it? We called out. What is the prize? Tell us. Tell us. Tell us. Mr. Scary walked back and forth very thinking. He said he was really not supposed to tell us the surprise. But then he did a wink. And he told us anyway. As the winning class is going to get a homemade pumpkin pie, he said. He smiled real big. And here is the best part. The pie will be made by our very own lunch lady, Mrs. Gladys Gutzman. After that, all of the children just sat there. And we didn't say any words. Instead, our faces turned kind of sickish. And we slumped way down in our chairs. Finally, I raised my hand. Pumpkin pie makes me vomit, I said. My friend Herbert nodded. Me too, he said. Pumpkin pie makes me vomit, too. Me 3, said my other friend named Shirley. Me 4, said a boy named Lenny. My grandmother's pumpkin pie sits in my mouth like a big wad of goop glop. Roger looked at Mr. Scary. A prize that makes us vomit doesn't seem like much to shoot for, he said. Mr. Scary sat down at his desk and rubbed his head. Okay. Let's just forget about the pie, he said. Really? This contest is not about winning a pie. This contest is about appreciating all the wonderful things in the world that we are thankful for. He looked around the room. If we're lucky enough to win, the real prize will be how proud we'll feel about doing our best, he said. A first-grade class has never won this contest before. But I think this class has a great chance. You are definitely the most creative first graders I've ever had. Roger stood up. Now that I believe, he said. My brother Rodney was in your class last year. And Rodney is adult. Mr. Scary closed his eyes. Then he rubbed his head more. This was not going to be a good morning, probably. 2, some thankful. Mr. Scary moved on again. Okay, boys and girls. Let's really get started now. If you'll please take out your homework papers, we'll begin sharing our ideas. Who would like to go first? I quick pulled out my homework. Me. 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 I shouted. 'Cause I have 4 excellent thankfuls. And I am not even kidding. Then I sprang up like a spring. And I started to read my thankful list. First, I am thankful for the turkey I love at Thanksgiving. Second, I enjoy the gravy. Plus, number 3, I am thankful for the kind of cranberry jelly that comes in a can, only even when you take it out of the can, it still keeps looking exactly like the can. I looked at my teacher. That stuff is like magic, I said. I do not know how farmers grow it in that shape. Mr. Scary stared at me a real long time. I looked back at my list. Oh! And here is my favorite one of all. I said. I am thankful for the kind of biscuits that come in a tube. And then you bash them on the counter. And they come exploding out. And everyone jumps. Plus also, my brother Ollie starts to cry. I grinned real big. That is just a fun bunch of biscuits. My friend Herbert jumped out of his seat. I can't believe it, Junie B. I am thankful for those biscuits, too, he said. He quick grabbed his homework page and held it up. Look! See? It's right here on my paper. Exploding biscuits! After that, me and Herb did a high 5. And a low 5. And a medium 5. Also, we did a fist bump. A fist bump is when you knock your knuckles together. Sometimes it can be painful. May threw back her head at us. Oh no, 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 she said. That cannot be true. Both of you did not write that by yourselves. You copied each other. I know you did. Who in the world is thankful for exploding biscuits? All of the children thought for a second. Then, one by one, they all started to shout. I am. I am. I am, too, they shouted. My friend named Sheldon Potts sprang up from his chair. Me too, he called. One time, I ate 6 exploding biscuits right out of the tube. And they weren't even cooked yet. All of our eyes popped out of our heads. 'Cause that was the greatest exploding biscuit story we ever heard. We looked back at Mr. Scary. His eyes were stuck on Sheldon. You're a fascinating little boy, Sheldon Potts, he said. Yes, I know. You keep telling me that, said Sheldon. Mr. Scary smiled. Then he turned to the board. And he wrote the words thankful list. Okay, Junie B. How about if you pick out your top 2 favorites? And we'll start the list off with them. I stared at my paper very thinking. Then I told him my 2 favorites. And Mr. Scary printed them on the board. 1. Cranberry jelly in a caneur. 2. Exploding biscuits. He took a step back. Well, just as I thought. We're off to an interesting start, he said. He turned back to room 1. As we continue, if you've brought a long list, please just pick the 2 things that you are the most thankful for. Okay? Okay, we shouted back. My friend named Lenny waved his hand to go next. All right, Lenny. Your turn. Tell us the number 1 thing in your life that you are the most thankful for. Lenny yelled it out. Nipsey Doodles, he said real loud. I love Nipsey Doodles. Mr. Scary's face went funny. He did not move for a minute. Then, finally, his eyebrows raised to the top of his head. Nipsey Doodles, Len, he repeated kind of quiet. Really? That's the number 1 thing in your life that you're thankful for? Nipsey Doodles? Lenny nodded. Then he checked his homework just to be sure. Yes, he said. Nipsey Doodles is number BR1. He smiled. They are a tasty little cheese snack unlike any other. Mr. Scary nodded very slow. Yes. I know, Lenny. I've heard the commercial. And I'm sure they're very tasty. But just out of curiosity, what is number 2 on your list? Lenny's face started to beam. Number 2. Rainbow sprinkles, he yelled. All of room 1 started to clap. Because the whole world loves rainbow sprinkles, of course. Mr. Scary didn't move again. Then finally, he picked up the chalk. And he added Lenny's 2 thankfuls to the list. 3. Nipsey Doodles. 4. Rainbow sprinkles. He stepped back and took a big breath. All righty. Let's take another look at what we have here so far, he said. We have 4 delicious food items, don't we? But just remember, there are other things to be thankful for, too. Right, boys and girls? Right, we said. We thought and thought. Like what? We said. Mr. Scary chuckled. Well, for one thing, in our country we're lucky to have freedom, he said. Freedom is one reason the Pilgrims came to America. No, he looked around the room. Did anyone put freedom on your thankful list? All of the children looked at their lists. Then everyone shook their heads no. Roger stood up again. We're only 6, he said. We don't really have any freedom, he thought for a second. I'm not even allowed to cross the street by myself. Me neither, said Shirley. I have to stay in my own front yard. Jose raised his hand. I have to go to bed at 7:30. and half the time it's still light outside, he said. Herbert stood up, too. Well, wait till you hear this one. I have to eat cooked carrots or I don't get a cookie after dinner, he said. Just then, Sheldon slapped his hand on his desk. And he shouted real loud, and I am forced to take a multivitamin, he hollered. Does that sound like freedom? Mr. Scary Quick held up his hand. Okay. Calm down, everyone. I get it, he said. He looked back at our thankful list. Then he nodded at us very thoughtful. Boys and girls, you are absolutely right. You are first graders. And you can be thankful for whatever you want, he said. This list should be exactly what you want it to be. Not me, not the contest judges. Not anyone else but you. He smiled. Tell feel that suck. Thanks for showing me that, he said. You're welcome, we said back. We are a polite group. Mr. Scary looked happy again. All right. Who would like to go next, he said. And remember, whatever you say will be perfectly fine with me. Sheldon jumped up. Toilet paper. I am thankful for toilet paper, he shouted. Mr. Scary's eyes got big and wide. But he quick snapped out of it. And he printed the words on the board. Number 5, toilet paper, he said. Sheldon grinned real excited. We're going to win this contest for sure, he said. He did a thumbs up at room 1. Then all of us did a thumbs up back. Except not actually Mr. Scary. 3. Thankful bags. Tuesday, dear first grade journal. Today is still the month of Thanksgiving, but hooray! Hooray! We are going to have show and tell for the whole entire day today. That is because yesterday, Mr. Scary gave us thankful bags to take home with us. And today we had to bring them back with something we are thankful for. We are keeping them a secret till show and tell. I brought something that I love very much. Here is a helpful hint. It is not my brother Ollie. Your friend, Junie B., first grader. I put down my pencil. And I looked around the room. All of the children had their thankful bags next to their chairs. Some of the bags looked emptyish. And some of them looked fullish. My thankful bag looked middle-ish. I picked it up and put it on my desk. Then I leaned over. And I tapped on May's arm. My thankful bag is middle-ish, I said real pleasant. May did not pay attention to me. I tapped on her arm again. You are probably wondering what is in my bag. But I cannot tell you. On account of it has to stay a surprise until show and tell, I said. May turned her back on me. This time, I tapped on her head. Helpful hint, it is not my brother Ollie, I said. Just then, May exploded out of her seat. And she tattletaled real loud. Mr. Scary! Mr. Scary! Junie Jones will not stop bothering me, she hollered. Mr. Scary frowned his eyebrows at me. I waved my fingers very friendly. Hello. How are you today? I am fine, I said. I was just showing May my thankful bag. I held it up in the air. It is middle-ish, I said. Mr. Scary kept on frowning. I put my bag on my desk. And I folded my hands very polite. Okay. I guess that about wraps it up, I said. Mr. Scary got a teensy smile on his face. Sometimes he enjoys me, I believe. Pretty soon, he stood up at his desk. And he clapped his loud hands together. Okay, boys and girls. It's time to get started with our very special day of show and tell, he said. Please put your journals away and arrange your chairs in a circle. We slammed our journals shut. Slam. Slam. Bam. Slam. Bam. Slam. Slam. Bam. Mr. Scary sucked in his cheeks at us. We quick opened our journals again. And we shut them very quiet. After that, we put our chairs in a circle. And we got ready for a whole entire day of show and tell. Woohoo! I said to Herbert. This is a dream come true. A whole entire day with no learning. Herb laughed and clapped. I wish every day had no learning, he said. Me too. I said. If every day had no learning, school would be a lot more popular. May butted into our conversation. Well, I am thankful for learning, she said. There is nothing I like better than learning, learning, learning. After that, she started skipping around her chair. I did a glare at her. Here is a suggestion, I said. Why don't you skip on home? May stuck out her tongue at me. There was no need for that, I believe. Just then, Mr. Scary clapped his hands again. Okay, everyone. Make sure you have your thankful bags at your chairs, and please take a seat. All of us got our bags and sat down. Good job, he said. It looks like we're ready to begin. I can't wait to see what kind of wonderful things you're thankful for. He pointed to Roger. Roger, would you like to start us off? He said. Roger's face looked sickish. Why, he said. Why me? I didn't even raise my hand. Mr. Scary smiled. I know you didn't, Roger, he said. I just thought you might like to start us off, that's all. Roger did a gulp. Oh, he said. Well, I wouldn't. Mr. Scary stopped smiling. Okay. It wasn't really a question, Roger, he explained. I would like you to go first. Roger's face got sweaty on it. He just kept sitting there. Mr. Scary crossed his arms at him. Roger, he said. We're waiting. Finally, Roger did a big deep breath. Then he stood up real slow. And he picked up his thankful bag. It looked emptyish. Mostly, I'm just thankful for this thankful bag, he said. He held it out in front of him. And he gave it a little shake. I don't know why I like this bag so much. But I'm just really, really thankful for it, he said. He did a pause. The end, he said. Then he quick sat back down. Mr. Scary frowned. Really, Roger? Seriously? He said. In your whole life, you're only thankful for the plastic bag I gave you yesterday? That's it? Roger stood up again. Well, no. I mean, I'm thankful for other stuff, too, he said. Mr. Scary raised his eyebrows. Like? Roger's face got stress in it. Like. He quick looked all around himself. Then all of a sudden, he stretched out the bottom of his t-shirt. Like this t-shirt I am wearing, he said. I am very, very thankful for this t-shirt. Roger's face got sweatier. This t-shirt is, He looked at it harder. White, he said finally. Mr. Scary nodded real slow. Yes, he said. We can see that, Roger. Roger kept stretching his shirt. Then he turned up the bottom. And he read us the tag. Machine wash, warm. Lay flat to dry, he read. After that, he stretched out the back of the neck. And he read us that tag, too. He boys size 6 to 8, he read. Made in. Mr. Scary Quick held up his hand. That's enough, Roger, he said very sternish. Roger kept on standing there. Honduras, he said. Mr. Scary snapped his loud fingers. Roger sat down. Show and tell was not off to a good start. 4. Diving. Mr. Scary stared at Roger a real long time. He said they would talk about this later. Talk about this later is the school word for getting yelled at when there's more time. Roger slumped way down in his seat. After that, Mr. Scary looked back at the class. Okay, everyone. We're going to continue now, he said. But this time, please raise your hand if you actually brought something to show. Lucille sprang out of her chair. I did, she hollered. I brought the best thing you ever saw. Then she reached down. And she pulled a big, giant purse out of her thankful bag. Wait till you see this, children, she said. I brought something that everyone in the whole world is thankful for. And I have lots and lots of it. After that, she turned the big, giant purse upside down. And wowie wow wow. Out came money, shouted Lucille. Money! 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 I am thankful for money. Room 1 did a gasp at that sight. Then all of our mouths fell open at once. And our eyes got bigger and bigger. And then, bam! We dived for it. Money, we hollered. Money! 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 I started to grab. And it's the paper kind. I yelled. Lucille laughed real happy. Then she turned her thankful bag inside out. And more money fell out on top of us. We. WOOHOO. Yippee, we hollered. Mr. Scary was hollering, too, I think. But it is hard to hear your teacher when you are money diving. Finally, he raised his voice to a louder level. It was the level that means business. Go back to your seats, he hollered. Now. Everyone stopped grabbing. And they hurried back to their seats speedy fast. And except for not actually me. Instead, I kept on sitting on the floor. 'Cause I had a teensy problem. Mr. Scary glared his eyes at me. Junie B. Jones? Did you hear me? I said, go back to your seat. I nodded real nervous. Yes, I said. Only I have a teensy problem. I pointed at his shoe. You're actually standing on a 5er. And so if you could just lift up this one shoe right here, I can get my money and be on my way. I tapped on the foot he should lift. Then I waited and waited for it to move. But it did not actually budge. instead. Yikes! I felt myself getting lifted off the floor. And I got carried right back to my seat. Mr. Scary sat me in my chair. I smiled real twitchy. And I smoothed my skirt. Okie doke, I said. I believe I will just sit here now and behave myself. Mr. Scary kept on standing there. I waved my fingers at him. All righty, then. Have a good day, I said. He took some deep breaths. Deep breaths are what teachers do to keep from screaming. Room 1 stayed quiet as a mouse. I could hear Mr. Scary's nose whistle. But now was not the time to tell him he needed a tissue, probably. Finally, he finished breathing. Then he picked up Lucille's big, giant purse. And he went around the circle. And he made all of us put her money back. Sheldon hung his head. I'm sorry, he said. Free money makes me cuckoo. Herb nodded. Me too, he said. Especially the paper kind. At my house, I don't even get an allowance. Me neither, said Roger. My parents expect me to live at home for free. Lenny rolled his eyes. Oh. Well, I get a whopping quarter for taking out the trash. Seriously. That's it. 1 quarter. He threw his hands in the air. I mean, why even bother? Mr. Scary snapped his fingers. That means knock it off. After that, all of us stayed quiet while Mr. Scary went to the board. He stood there very thinking. Then finally, he picked up the chalk. And he added money to our thankful list. After he finished, he took Lucille by the hand. And he walked her to the door. Boys and girls, Lucille and I are going to take her money to the office for safekeeping, he said. But while we are gone, I want you all to stay in your seats. And I want you to think very, very hard about what just happened here. He narrowed his eyes at us. I think we all know that Lucille's family is wealthy. And we are all very happy for her. But there are lots of other things to be thankful for besides money. Right, Lucille? He said. Right, she said back. She shook her head around in the air. I am also thankful for my shiny, gleaming hair. Then she kept on shaking it until Mr. Scary said, Please stop. He looked at her. Believe it or not, Lucille, there are plenty of people who don't have money or shiny hair. But they are still very happy, haired Lucille fluffed herself. That's just nuts, she said. Mr. Scary pulled her out the door. 5. Talking it over. I did what Mr. Scary said. I stayed in my seat. And I thought very hard about what just happened here. First, I tapped on my chin. Then I scratched my head. And I strained and strained my brain. But nothing actually came to me. Finally, I tapped on Herbert. Okay. I give up. What just happened here? I asked. Why is Mr. Scary so mad at us? Herb did a shrug. I'm not really sure, he said. We dived in a pile of money. Who wouldn't do that? May jumped up and pointed to herself. I wouldn't, that's who, she said. I did not dive in the money pile. Instead, I walked around the edges with dignity. And I picked up whatever money squeezed out. Herb looked curious at her. How much money squeezed out? May stood there a minute. None, she said. Exactly, said Herb. May sat back down. Herb looked at the board and sighed. I have a feeling that Mr. Scary really hates our thankful list. May threw her head back. Of course he hates our thankful list, she said. Just look how stupid it is. She hurried to the board. And she read each item out loud. 1. Cranberry jelly in a can. 2. Exploding biscuits. 3. Nipsey doodles. 4. Rainbow sprinkles. 5. Toilet paper. 6. Money. I scratched my head again. I don't see the problem, I said. I think we have a nice little assortment there. May stamped her foot. It's stupid, Junie Jones. Stupid, 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 she said. Who in the world is thankful for toilet paper? Sheldon raised his hand. I am, he said. My grandpa Ned Potts says that toilet paper was one of the greatest inventions in history. Especially after they put that little cardboard Raleigh thing inside. I nodded. Yes, I said. That cardboard Raleigh thing is a genius. If you put some string through it, it makes a lovely necklace for Mother's Day. Jose jumped up. Plus, if you have 2 of them, you can make binoculars, he said. May I make binoculars and spy on my sister? And they really, really work. May did a huffy breath at us. Well, I don't care what you guys say. My mother, Mrs. Mary Murky, says our list from yesterday is ridiculous. She says children are never thankful for the right stuff. And so that's how come she started a brand new thankful list for us. She reached in her pocket and pulled out the list. My mother says if we use this list, we will win the contest for sure. She unfolded it. Who wants to hear it? Who wants to hear the brand new list my mother started? No one raised their hand. May read it anyway. Our thankful list by Room 1. Number 1. Room 1 is thankful for our mothers, who cover us in blankets of warm, fuzzy love and make our hearts overflow with joy bubbles. Number 2. Room 1 is thankful for the happy sound of our mother's laughter as it tinkles through the air and melts like musical snow crystals in our ears. Number 3. Room 1 is thankful for May. The end. May looked up and grinned. I added that last one myself. But I think it fits right in, she said. She folded her list up again. And she skipped back to her seat. At first, Room 1 did not say any words. We just stared at each other with curious eyes. Then finally, Lenny spoke up. I think we should stick with the Nipsey doodles, he said. All of the children got relief in our faces. Yes, yes. Me too. Me too, we said. May's face looked angry at us. She stomped her foot again. I knew this would happen. I told Mother you people wouldn't listen. She covered her head with her sweater. All of us ignored her. We looked at the board some more. Then, all of a sudden, Shirley clapped her hands together. Hey! Wait! I've got an idea! Let's put something on the list that every grown-up likes. That way Mr. Scary will be happier with us. And maybe we'll get more votes from the grown-up judges. I thought for a second. Yeah, but what does every grown-up like, Shirley? I asked. I don't even have a clue. Shirley thought for a second, too. Then she sprang right up. I got it. It just came to me. Nature, she said. Every grown-up loves nature. They love flowers and trees and mountains and oceans and other junk like that. She clapped her hands. Plus every grown-up I know loves cute little forest animals, she said. Let's put that one on the board. Let's put cute little forest animals. She ran to get the chalk. Sheldon quick stood up. No, Shirley. Wait, he called. My Aunt Bunny is a grown-up. But she doesn't love forest animals. Last summer, she had a run-in with a raccoon. It jumped on her head. And then it just sat there like a hat. He did a shiver. For a very long time, I mean, he said. Herb nodded. My mother doesn't like forest animals either, he said. Last year, we went to the state park. And a squirrel spit on her when she handed him a Frito, he said. He looked disturbed. She said a bad word. We have it on video. Lenny raised his hand. My grandmother doesn't even like the forest, he said. Last year, we took her camping, and she got her foot stuck in a pork and beans can. He covered his face very embarrassed. She said she was trying to make camp slippers. After that, all the other children started telling terrible nature stories, too. Shirley hung down her head and went back to her seat. I leaned over and patted her. Don't feel bad, Shirley, I said. Being thankful is just harder than we thought. See, said Jose. He held up his thankful bag. I brought in our TV remote. But now that seems a stupido, he said. He looked over at Roger. I wish I had forgotten mine, like you did, Rog, he said. Roger squirmed in his chair. Well, I didn't really forget mine, Jose, he said. I brought in a can of whipped cream. But I squirted it in my mouth before school started. Jose smiled. Who wouldn't, he said. Just then, we heard feet in the hall. SHH. SHH. Mr. Scary is coming. Mr. Scary is coming, we whispered to each other. Then room 1 got speedy quiet. And Mr. Scary and Lucille walked right in the door. And we did not get caught talking. Mr. Scary took Lucille back to her chair. She fluffed her shiny hair. And she did a spin. I didn't even get in trouble, she said. All I had to do was put my money in the safe. And I had to promise not to throw dollars at poor people. Mr. Scary frowned his eyebrows. I don't really think that was our message, Lucille, he said. We talked about not bragging. And we said that having money doesn't make you better than anyone else. Remember that? Lucille fluffed some more. Nope, she said. Then she skipped in a circle. And she twirled herself into her chair. Mr. Scary looked at the rest of us. Boys and girls, I'm sure you all know that diving for money was not a good decision, correct? He said. Correct, we shouted. We did not really believe that. But sometimes it is just better to shout correct. Okay, good, he said.